Theme is the central, underlying, and controlling idea of a literary work, maybe a novel, poem, short story, play, etc. Theme is not directly stated and is an inference that a reader makes. This inference is interpreted from analyzing characters, action, and imagery presented in the piece of literature. Because theme often involves the development and revelation of character, it is ordinarily expressed in a full sentence, and it may even involve as much as a full paragraph. What isn't theme and where do I locate it? It is important to understand what theme is and what it is not. It cannot be expressed in a single word as a subject can. It is not the purpose of the work, such as entertainment or instruction. Unlike the moral of a fable or the lesson of a parable, the theme of a story is seldom, if ever, explicitly stated. Theme is almost always implied. It is an inference, and you can make an educated guess to locate it. How do I find theme? To ascertain theme, locate it, the reader must understand the plot, characterization, conflict, the imagery, and the author's tone. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so in order to create your thesis, the number one thing that you have to be able to understand is the story itself. And so in working together with you guys this week, I don't think that most of you understand Born Worker very well, so I'm going to go ahead and go over it. I was thinking that I don't think that was a story that we went over in great detail, but it's one that we do need to speak about. So let's go ahead and talk about the plot chart. So the very first thing that you have to understand in Born Worker is the setting is in a neighborhood. The characters are Jose and Arnie. Even though the parents are mentioned, they are not characters in the story. That is just a part of the exposition. So your exposition will include a background as well. And that background about Jose having a very strong work ethic is because the problem is that two cousins who are raised completely different go into business together when they take odd jobs from neighbors. And because that background about Jose having to work for everything that he's ever received is given, it is a comparison to how Arnie has not been raised in the same way. Your first event of rising action is Jose comes home from school and Arnie is waiting in his front yard. And remember, when he sees Arnie, Arnie is laying in the grass. He actually has a piece of grass in his mouth, and he looks like a man of leisure. He looks like someone who doesn't have a care in the world, and he's just there having fun. And he asks Jose to partner with him in a business. And when they partner together, you see that there is a little bit of strife, and you kind of can suspect this is not going to work out well, because it seems that it's not a 50-50 deal. It's like Arnie wants to get more out of this than Jose. And you have a feeling, based upon how Jose is presented to you versus how you meet Arnie, and it also tells us that he comes from a very privileged home, this is not going to end well. So they go into business, and as they're working, they receive these odd jobs. Jose notices that Arnie really doesn't have much work ethic, and he notices that he complains, and when he's not complaining, he is actually not even working, and he's sitting there judging how well Jose does a job. And so Jose he's pretty respectful, and he doesn't, say anything to him. He just lets it be because, he was given a task, and his focus is that task. Now, after he notices the lack of work ethic that Arnie has, this is the part in the story where they receive the job from Mr. Clemens. And when they go to Mr. Clemens, Jose works, and Arnie does nothing. He sits there and talks the entire time. And he runs his mouth, and he actually says a bunch of, strange things. Like, he talks about, his dad teaching him to swim, and how his dad showed him where a dead body had been on the beach, and that's why his dad showed him how to swim. And there's a part about, he's more French than anything, and, you know, how he's barely Mexican and, you know, they're cousins. And so there seems to be something that's a little off about Arnie. In my opinion, I have to ask myself, do I trust that character? I'm not quite sure that Arnie is exactly, you know, honest. But regardless, what ends up happening besides that is in the climax, Mr. Clemens falls in the pool. And this is where the true test of character occurs. So when he falls in the pool, the other part of that is Jose leaps into action and Arnie leaves. He's completely afraid. And he's like, he says something like, you know, we have to go. It's almost as if, you know, there's this guilt. And you go back to the fact when Mr. Clemens was like, how do I know you? And he's like, oh, you know me through my dad. And you're not quite sure that that happened. And then all of the other stuff that Arnie tells you makes you think, you know, when he reacts and he wants to leave, you know, is he not being honest about something? I mean, is there more to Arnie than we're actually being told? But regardless, if he's being dishonest, or the fact that when it comes to hard work, we do know that he just shuts down. And so he ends up leaving. And Jose, knowing that he has to do any job he takes well, he is faced with this difficult situation. But because he has been, you know, taught to complete things and to face difficult things in life, no matter what it is, he calls 911. He jumps into action, he gets ice, he helps Mr. Clemens out of the pool. The first responders arrive, and then the very last piece of action is Arnie comes back and takes credit. Now, this is how we know Arnie's a liar, because did he do anything? No, he didn't do anything. So I think at this point, with all of the bizarre things he's saying and the fact that we see him lie, I think it's safe to say that Arnie is not a very honest person, and he has no work ethic. So, with that being said, your conflict is character versus character, and it's also character versus society, because you see the idea of honesty, work ethic, that can be duty, that can be responsibility, that's being taught through this story. And these are the two things that we kind of want to focus on. So let's go ahead and look at my next video where I actually show you how to take this stuff and to put it into a thesis statement. Guys, let's go ahead and discuss theme. So theme is a central underlying and controlling idea of a literary work. And it can be any literary work. It can be a novel, it can be a short story, a play, an epic poem. It's an abstract concept, meaning something you can't really put your hands on, but it's there. And it's represented through characters, it's represented through actions, it's represented through images. And the theme is a generalization about human conduct. And it can be very serious, it can be comical, it can be very profound and, you know, philosophically important, or it can just be unsurprising. So when we read literature, literature teaches us. It's not just something that we're forced to do, but the entire point of using words to put into poems or to put into novels or to put into short stories is because when we read about literature, we look at characters and we understand ourselves a little more. And so that's what you were supposed to explain to readers. You were going to take a reading that you really enjoyed, and you were going to say, I really enjoyed this reading. I really connected with it. And I think that this is an important reading, and I liked it because it taught this, and I think others should like it because of the same message. So let's go ahead and talk about, a theme. A theme is not one word. A theme is not, man versus nature. That's conflict. A theme is actually where you discuss the subject of something that you have read, and you give a couple of sentences of comment about what the author is actually trying to say. So theme is all about inferences. So we already discussed the plot over here. And let's go ahead and talk about the characters over here. So how does the character of Arnie and the character of Jose, what do they teach us about the controlling idea of a literary work? So you have these two cousins, Jose family works hard for what they have. He has been taught working hard is a part of life. Arnie is the exact opposite of Jose. So everything that we could say about Jose, when we go to explain Arnie, he's a contrast to that character. So he has been raised in a family Arnie, he doesn't work much. Comes from a family that gives him, and that's kind of the character that he is. Now, Jose is the exact opposite. Now, as far as the action that takes place, Jose works hard without complaint. Arnie hardly works. He complains and tries to get out of work. This entire supervising thing, do you really think that Jose needs to be supervised in his work? Jose is a self-starter. He's really mature. And I don't think that of anyone who could be supervising him, Arnie would be the person that he needs. So, and he tries to get out of work. That's Arnie. Jose accepts his lot. Yeah, it's tough, but such is life. And remember, this is on the first page. Something that he actually, learned from his dad. His dad is like, you know what? Sometimes you have to do things in life and you don't want to do them, but it's necessary to do them. So this is what we learn from those characters. And the images that we have are, Arnie. Not working. When we first meet Arnie, he's laying in the grass with actually a piece of grass in his mouth. He's just sitting around like if you think of like the ants and the grasshoppers, Jose is an ant. He works hard all year. Jose is like a grasshopper. He's there to play, and literally he has that piece of grass. I mean, it's kind of an archetype, a motif, as you will in a story. And so the image of Jose that we constantly have, he's not fazed by hard work. We see Jose lifting, we see Jose carrying, we see Jose continuously giving his all and not saying a word. As a matter of fact, the one person that's talking throughout this entire story is Arnie. And he's talking and not working. Jose is working, and that's kind of why he's not talking. He does a lot of talking to us in his head because he's a little annoyed by Arnie's character. Now, Yuri Soto wrote this story in third person, omniscient. And remember, omniscient means that whoever is telling the story knows everything about the characters. And so you're in the character's head. Like, he can tell you exactly what Jose is thinking. Jose is super annoyed with Arnie. So when you get this story, you're presented with information about Arnie and information about Jose. And when we move to the theme, let's go ahead and look over here. So the subject of the story is Jose is a born worker, right? That's what the title says. And at the very beginning it says, he came out of the womb and he had, dirt beneath his nails, and his hands were, rough by the age of 3. And, by the age of, 7 or 5 or whatever, he was, sitting at the kitchen table drinking coffee like an adult. So one of the reasons the author does that is he wants to shape the idea of how Jose has been taught work ethic from a very young age. I don't think he was born with dirt under his nails, but everything that he says on that first page, in my opinion, are metaphors. And he's telling you these things because he wants you to understand his thoughts about Jose's character. Why is he a hard worker? So what is the author saying about Jose being a born worker and having a strong work ethic? So for him to communicate that, that's when the character of Arnie comes in. And Arnie represents all that Jose is not. So Jose, he has been taught not everything comes in life without effort, right? Jose's character has been taught, do not quit when you are challenged in life. So did his dad quit? Did his mom quit just because their jobs were tough? No. So he's been taught to not quit. He's been taught that, not everything comes to you in life without effort. And when you talk about the theme that the author is actually getting at, it's the fact that Jose has been raised to have the values that he does. And the values, the ideas that come out of the story are work ethic, responsibility, honesty. That's another thing that's been taught, because remember, we have an idea that Jose and Arnie, Jose goes into action to help Mr. Clemens, and Arnie leaves, and we don't understand why he wants to leave. It kind of makes you question, how he actually came to get this job, because it seems like there's something not quite right with the way that Arnie is talking to Mr. Clemens. And then he wants to leave because he's afraid that they're going to get in trouble. Why would they get in trouble? Well, Arnie has probably done something that's not quite honest. Maybe he lied to him. Oh, you knew my dad. No, you don't know my dad. I just made that up. But he's not going to tell him that because all he wants is to get the money, from this job. And Jose, he doesn't even, doubt for 1 minute the right thing to do. And you don't see him, bragging and boasting and doing a lot of talking. So because you teach your children from a young age, that's where the idea of born comes from, to have a strong work ethic. And it's important that you do that, because if you don't do that, then you're going to end up with a character like Arnie, right? And when you teach them this idea, that is demonstrated because Jose's character, he does a great job with everything that he does. All of the jobs that he's been given, throughout the story, we don't see him, oh, he just did a little bit, he didn't really work that hard. No, he's been taught to work hard from his parents. He does well in school. You can tell he's working hard in everything that he does on these side jobs. And that's kind of the irony of it, because Arnie keeps on telling him, oh, you could do this better. But Arnie's not doing anything. And, Jose knows that he's doing his best. And he's doing his best because he's been taught to be responsible. Jose is not a dishonest person. He's been taught to do the right thing, and he's been taught to, when you've been asked to do something, to do it right. And his character demonstrates honesty. Arnie's character, not very honest. No work ethic. Not responsible. Him not working when Jose is, when you first meet him, laying on the grass with a piece of grass in his mouth. I mean, he is not a serious character. He is not very mature. He is not very responsible. And he doesn't have a lot of work ethic. And one of the things that we've been told about Arnie's character is that he's more well off than Jose, and he does not have to work that much. I mean, they tell you that in the story. If you open up to page 48, it tells you he didn't like his cousin. This is in paragraph 10. He thought he was lazy and worse, spoiled by the trappings of being middle class. His parents had good jobs in offices and showered him with clothes, shoes, CDs, vacations, almost anything he wanted. Arnie's family had never climbed a telephone pole to size up the future. So Arnie comes from a really different life than Jose. And we know for a fact that they've been raised completely different. And so those two characters demonstrate the author's message about the importance of teaching your kids from a young age to have a work ethic. And when you teach them from a young age to have a work ethic, that work ethic, these values, they learn to be responsible, they learn to be mature, they learn to be honest. So if we go ahead and take 1 minute, I'll come back and I'll show you how you take this information right here, the subject, what the author's saying about it, and the ideas that kind of come up when you think about the true message that the author is communicating to you. How do you take that and put it into a thesis statement? All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and talk about how we take the subject and the ideas that come with the subject and put this into a thesis statement. So let's recap. So the subject that the author is communicating is the idea of Jose being this born worker. Well, what he's truly saying is Jose has been raised from a young age to know the value of work. And because his parents taught him that, he knows that not everything in life comes without effort. He has been taught, that you don't quit when things are, being, challenging you. And he's been taught, let's go ahead and take, so this is responsibility, honesty. So we have responsibility. Not everything comes in life without effort. You need to be responsible and to have work ethic and go for it. Right here you have maturity. Do not quit when you are challenged in life. And then the final thing is going to be honesty. So he's been told to always have integrity and do the right thing. So integrity is a character trait. When something it's just as easy to do the wrong thing as it is to do the right thing, and you do the wrong thing, you lack integrity. But when you know to do the right thing, even if it's, harder, you do it because you're an honest person. That's integrity. And so this is, the ideas that come out of this. And, the author is saying, this stuff, this starts at a young age. Like parents, we are responsible for teaching our kids this. And as a kid, you learn this from home. That's what the author is saying about this. And when this is learned at home, kids come to school and or not to school, but, kids grow up and they, know to be responsible and to work hard. They know that, even if not everything comes without putting forth some effort. They learn that, you don't quit when the going gets tough. And they learn that, no matter how bad it may seem. You always have to do the right thing. So we're going to take that stuff right there, and we're going to move over here. So let's go ahead and start with our TAT. So born worker. Written by Gary Soto, time in 1998, comma, is a short story that teaches how work ethic begins at home and starts at a young age. Soto demonstrates this message through the ideas of now. This is your opinion. Sorry about that, I cut out. So this is your opinion of the story. And your opinion is based on, what do you think that author is truly saying about this topic? What is he saying about work ethic? Well, what the author is saying about work ethic is it starts young and it starts at home, right? And that's why you have the example of Arnie to show you kind of the opposite of that opinion. Now, you have to give ideas because now you have to prove your point. And so what you want to do is you want to take that theme statement and you want to have some supporting ideas that you can find examples from the story to prove. And so we went ahead and we talked about the idea of responsibility, the idea of maturity, and the idea of honesty, right? So let's go ahead and take this stuff right here and transfer it to here. So we have this idea, responsibility, honesty, maturity, and then you have these corresponding statements to the same. We're going to add this to our thesis. All right, so here we are. So Born Worker, written by Gary Soto in 1998, is a short story that teaches how work ethic begins at home and starts at a young age. Soto demonstrates this message through the ideas of, now we don't want to have just one word, but we're going to take those single words and we're going to add our statements about them. So let's go ahead and talk about responsibility. So responsibility, so through the idea of how work ethic teaches responsibility and that effort is required when it comes to any work in life, no matter what it is, comma, work ethic teaches teaches maturity and helps kids to learn that a person must not give up in life, comma, and also through work ethic, the value of integrity is taught because kids learn to be honest in every type of work they may come across in life. So, the big idea is work ethic, beginning at home, starting at a young age, and then this is taught and demonstrated through responsibility, maturity, and integrity or honesty. So those are your three ideas. What I want you guys to do is you're going to take this thesis statement and your body paragraph, you're going to focus on one of these, responsibility, maturity, or integrity. So look at your quotes and you need to see which ones match these ideas. And then I'll show you how to put that together in a body paragraph.